Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi, and of course, as we all know, one more time, your existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, it's me, Robert Meyer Burnett, with another episode of Robservations, the show about something, and I am Robcasting to you from the Robservatory. And yesterday somebody accused me of being tired. I am very tired today, to be honest. Was very late or very early, depending on what you want to say. I'm discombobulated trying to finish delivering the last of the Hills Run Red pieces. I'm sending things all over the place. It's crazy. But I'm kind of depressed now because after I deliver all this, what am I going to be working on? I don't know. There's things to work on, I suppose. There's always something to work on. But it's crazy. I mean, I've been working on, in this quarantine, and that Netflix show I can't talk about. I've been working on Hills Run Red. I created like 3 hours of new programming over the last month. I mean, 3 hours of programming is a lot. All from right here. All from right here, ladies and gentlemen. All for you. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of the Post-Geek Singularity community. And I've also been arranging for some very interesting interviews. I'm doing a lot of pre-recorded interviews, as many of you know, for the upcoming 400th episode of Robservations, which is going to take place, I believe, on the 23rd. 6 days from today, next Thursday. I'm going to do a 400-minute show. That is correct, ladies and gentlemen. 400 minutes. And like John Campea did on his show, I will be raising money for charities to help out with COVID-19 aid. I've been looking around to find out which charities would most benefit from what John did. And I'm kind of, he did one charity. I was thinking about doing maybe one every hour, changing it up. I haven't decided yet. I also was just given the go-ahead today, as a matter of fact, to do a huge giveaway on this channel. Huge giveaway that will kick off on the 400th episode and carry us through the month of May, which is very exciting. And it's going to be easy to enter. All you're going to have to do is like leave a comment, any activity on the website, or subscribe, or all of those things. It's quite something, actually. It's quite a fun thing that I'll be giving away, and it's something all of you imagination connoisseurs might be interested in acquiring. That's all I can say, because it is pretty dope, if I do say so myself. So welcome. This is Robservations episode number 394. Wow, 394. Pretty amazing. Now, we all knew it was coming, and it was announced today. It was announced this morning, and that is, of course, the end of COMICON 2020. COMICON 2020 has officially been scrapped, and it's very sort of disappointing to me. It would have been my 32nd consecutive COMICON. 32nd consecutive COMICON. An article that was dropped, once again, I'm going to have to put on my glasses. I'll read it to you. I will share it with you. Yes, it came out of the Hollywood Reporter, and who knows how long the Hollywood Reporter is going to be around with us because of massive cutbacks that it's been suffering. But yes, ladies and gentlemen, San Diego Comic-Con, according to Trilby Beresford, at 10:13 today, 10:13 a.m., Comic-Con has been canceled. The annual entertainment and comic book convention was scheduled to take place from July 23rd to 26th. San Diego Comic-Con has been canceled as the coronavirus pandemic continues to reshape how the world views large public gatherings. The annual entertainment and comic book convention was scheduled to take place from July 23rd to 26th in San Diego. It will next occur July 22nd through 25th, 2021. This is the first time in the event's 50-year history that it has been canceled. Extraordinary times require extraordinary measures, and while we are saddened to take this action, we know it is the right decision, says Comic-Con spokesperson David Glanzer. We eagerly look forward to the time when we can all meet again and share in the community we all love and enjoy. People who have purchased badges for the 2020 convention will be able to request a refund or transfer their badges to next year's Comic-Con. Organizers said an email will be sent to badge holders in the coming weeks to explain the process. Those who have booked hotels via OnPeak do not need to take action and will automatically receive refunds, according to Comic-Con organizers. Comic-Con is the most important geek event of the year, with 135,000 people descending upon San Diego Convention Center for 2019's convention. It launched as a relatively small, comics-focused event in 1970, and over the past decade has grown to encompass television and film, becoming a go-to place for major players, such as Marvel Studios, to unveil news about its slate, or for Warner Brothers to show off its upcoming DC films. Its Hall H has become home for panels for the biggest genre shows on TV, such as AMC's The Walking Dead and HBO's Westworld. The coronavirus has already seen big shifts in the genre sphere, with Universal's Fast 9 being delayed a year and Marvel's Phase 4 slate being postponed. Wondercon, the Anaheim convention run by the organizers of the San Diego Comic-Con, was postponed from its April date and is now scheduled for March 26th through 28th, 2021. The cancellation follows California Governor Gavin Newsom issuing a recommendation that gatherings of 250 people or more be canceled or postponed to prevent further spread of the viral infection. As I cough. Both California and Los Angeles County, in addition to Orange County and San Francisco, have declared states of emergency. Numerous events, including South by Southwest, Coachella, E3, CinemaCon, and Tribeca, have been canceled in the wake of the virus. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I have to say that I wholeheartedly support and approve of this decision. I think it was actually a long time coming. I understand there's so much money involved. Comic-Con is a non-profit event, but it represents huge profit for the city of San Diego and a lot of the businesses around San Diego. That, again, the ripple effect in the economy, these are hotels and restaurants. They really look forward to. It's not just 3 days of Comic-Con. They have preview nights, so it's 4 days, and then people come into the city the week before. So the economic impact on San Diego is huge. Then there's all the events that are put on, whether it's parties that people are throwing, the exhibit halls and things that people set up in and around Comic-Con, not just inside the convention center, but outside the convention center. Last year, Elizabeth and I and Sophie, we got an Airbnb. So the people that provide that and require or need that kind of work or need the kind of income, that all of that went away. So like everything else, the economic ripple effects of what's going on it's enormous. And this is just one event. You know, it's a good thing. I think ultimately it has to happen. And, you know, I choose to believe as I read there's a lot of strangeness going on. I mean, Donald Trump called for 3 states to rise up in insurrection today. I'm a little unclear. The Second Amendment's being threatened in Virginia. So what's supposed to happen? I'm a little unclear about that. But Donald Trump tweeted that today, 3 different states. And I'm glad that's not happening in California yet. I really don't think that any kind of state's insurrection or people, they don't need any of that. That can only add to the situation. But I would like to say that I think, aside from the terrible loss of life, and yesterday was a terrible day in this country. We lost, 4,500 people? People at the Actors Home. I mean, Alan Davio, the DP of course, Empire's Son, and E.T. that we talked about, Bugsy, he passed away of coronavirus. And there's just, it's hitting everybody. But I choose to believe that in the face of this chaos and the case in the state, I think ultimately, you know, I always have to look at the bright side. And I think the bright side of all of this is literally it's sort of forced the entire world at once just to pause, just to stop for a minute. Whoever thought that would happen? Now, yes, the economic impact is enormous, and it's going to be a hardship for a while. But I think, in a way, that maybe this is exactly the kind of wake-up call we all needed. And I think in the long run, maybe this will be a good thing. I think whenever Americans, especially, we're always good in the clutch, in a crisis. That's I think when we step up and do our best work sometimes. And I really would like to believe that's the case here. We remain civil, we remain calm, we remain contemplative, but we also take action, and we're decisive and not stupid. So hopefully that'll be a good thing. And in the long run, maybe we'll all have a chance. I mean, how many people get a chance to stop and reassess their lives? Like in the middle of your life, modern culture, modern life is so fast and furious. Things change on a dime. And in a way, maybe this moment of respite will be helpful for everybody in the long run. I know that in a way it's allowed me, as much work as I've had to do and as scattered as I've been the last week, it's sort of allowed me to focus and sort of decide and be like, okay, I don't have to leave the house. I don't have to go anywhere. The last couple weeks, the only place I've gone is walk down to the corner where there's the great Pasadena Pizza Company. Picked up a few pies for the fam and maybe a pack of sixer of Voodoo Ranger IPA. But it's kind of been nice, sitting here talking to you guys, doing Elizabeth's whining about movies. By the way, we postponed. Both Elizabeth and I are slammed with work today, so we postponed Elizabeth's until tomorrow. I don't know exactly yet what movie we're going to watch, but we're going to do it tomorrow at 6 p.m. Pacific time. So there you go. Now, it's not all bad. Our imagination connoisseur, Jacob Fudge, who, of course, has his comic book store, Comic Relief Comics, that we were all trying to help out and wondering he's one of our own. A little bit of good news. A little bit of good news for Jacob today, which I was happy to read about. DC announces its return to comic book stores on Tuesday, April 28th. Once again, I got to put on my glasses. This is very good news for people who believe in comic book stores, as I do. New DC comic books to be available at open and operating comic book retailers. DC comic books are returning to comic shops beginning Tuesday, April 28th. After a 4-week break, fans can celebrate that new superhero stories will be arriving at operating retail stores. After surveying more than 2,000 stores across the U.S. and Canada, it became clear that many comic book store owners are finding new and creative ways to get books to the fans who want them. To find stores that may have the new titles, visit Comic Shop Locator webpage, which I will put into the live chat because how cool is that? And as we know from Jacob writing in and telling us his story, he was keeping his store going by personally delivering, here's the locator, it's in the live chat, by personally delivering comics to his customers. So good on Jacob, and I think any comic book store owner is breathing a sigh of relief now. I don't know how Jacob's been doing in the last week or two, but when I read this, I couldn't help but have a smile on my face thinking of him. The new slate of titles includes also available for digital purchase at participating digital retailers. Batman 89 the Third printing, featuring the first appearance of Punchline. Daphne Byrne 4. The Dreaming 20, the unbelievable epic finale to Cy Spurrier and the Bilquist Evely's epic tale from the Sandman universe. Nightwing 70, second printing. Batman Giant 4. And that's pretty good. So we've got 5 comics from DC coming out April 28th. Not a lot, but a start. And maybe Marvel will follow suit. I'm very curious. Are they getting them from Diamond? How are these retailers going to be getting their comics? I don't know. But I'm really happy for Jacob and Comic Relief Comics, which is great. So cheers for one of our own, ladies and gentlemen. Cheers for one of our own. Some good news for an imagination connoisseur. And remember, next weekend, April 25th through 26th, I will be participating in the Mainframe COMICON. It's live and online. And yes, this picture is me in 2011. What do you want? Sue me. The picture I use in my thumbnail's new. So there you go. People are like, what are you, 23 years younger here? No, man. Am I that old? Yeah, maybe with the facial hair and the gray. Maybe I should wash that gray right out of my hair. I don't like it, though. I kind of like my gray hair. It's kind of cool. I don't know what you guys think, but I like it. So anyway, there is where we are at as far as that is concerned. So it's not all horrible. Now, ladies and gentlemen, there is something, you know what? I'm just going to mention this. Because I would be remiss if I did not. According to Entertainment Tonight recently, LeVar Burton addressed the possibility of him returning to his iconic role of USS Enterprise D engineer Geordi LaForge in the upcoming second season of Star Trek Picard. Burton confirmed to the outlet he is set to come back, along with other Star Trek The Next Generation alums, even as discussions with producer Alex Kurtzman are still taking place. This is what is quoted. This is what LeVar Burton said. How do I say this without getting in trouble? I think that it's reasonable to assume that those people are still a part of Picard's life, and sure, what the hell? Yeah, absolutely. You'll see us all. Probably not in the same time, but, never say never. Which is very funny, because obviously they're going to turn Star Trek Picard into the show everybody wanted. Again, for everything I've said, I hope it's good. I thought there was a huge missed opportunity not to do what they did at the beginning of All Good Things, where you have Geordi come visit Picard on his vineyard, although it's just a different meeting. It's not Picard going off on the mission or in what happened in All Good Things, but you played it differently. But Geordi could have shown up. I thought that was a big missed opportunity. I would love to have seen that happen, although it did not. But look, I like LeVar Burton. I like Geordi LaForge. I hope that it's well written and it serves the character and maybe Star Trek Picard. I mean, Picard, I guess, now might need an engineer more than ever, being that he's not real anymore. He's now a synth. So he's going to need an engineer in his life more so than ever before, at least for repairs, oil changes, whatever it is he's going to need, right? Am I right about that? Give me a hip-hop hooray, Rob. There we go. So anyway, it is kind of exciting, I guess. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm going to jump into what you guys have to say today, because I have a lot of letters that I want to get to. A lot of good ones, too. Calvin Bose sends in a few tips, and he says, tip for parents. Show your kids classic films. Okay. Show your kids classic films, starting before they can even talk. My sons in their short lives have been exposed to Hitchcock, the Universal Monsters, Laurel and Hardy, John Wayne, Tarzan movies, classic films. Some they ask to watch over and over again. I wholeheartedly agree with what Calvin's saying. When I got divorced from my wife, I rented half of a house, and my friends that lived below me had two young sons. And this was back in 2006, 2007. And they would always show them a steady diet of the Marx Brothers, Three Stooges, older James Bond movies, and things like that. And they love them. And it really is kids will soak up what you give to them. And I've told the story about how we went with Liam, and his first James Bond movie in a theater was Goldfinger. It was playing at the ArcLight. And I'll never forget when it was over, Liam came out and said, James Bond wore a hat. Because he hadn't seen James Bond wear a hat. He'd been seeing more recent Bond movies. And it was so great seeing Goldfinger with a kid. A kid who was probably 9. And he loved it. Just loved it. So, Calvin, I'm right there with you. Calvin also goes on to say, do you remember when pizza parlors would show old-time movies? That was how I discovered Flash Gordon. I would go to Straw Hat Pizza every week just to see the next chapter. Calvin, I do remember that. What we had was Shakey's, which you still have here, but Shakey's was revamped. But when I would go to Shakey's as a little kid, I mean, it was a favorite birthday destination spot. They would show old movies, and they had the big, long, black benches, and it was dark inside Shakey's. I'm actually a huge... I like Shakey's. I've always liked Shakey's pizza. Of course, they're Mojo potatoes, maybe because it goes back to the time I was a kid. But I've always loved Shakey's. So good on Shakey's. But they don't do it anymore. I know they went a little bit more upscale because I think they I think it was a little down market. Even I, as a kid, was like, this is kind of down market. I mean, I didn't know what the term down market meant, but I understood that it wasn't exactly lavish. It was a simpler time back then. Calvin goes on to say, what do you think the world would be like if George Lucas got the rights to Flash Gordon? As you know, he wrote Star Wars because he couldn't get the rights. I think we are better off that's Flash Gordon, the lack of George Lucas getting the rights to Flash Gordon made the world a much more creative place. I think that, again, sometimes the best creativity is done under duress or some kind of limitations. And certainly that was the case with George Lucas when he couldn't get the rights to Flash Gordon. He made up his own universe, which is always a better thing, I think. And we're better for it. And I think that if he had got the rights to Flash Gordon, think about, would there be Jedi Knights? Would there be lightsabers? Would there be the Millennium Falcon? Probably not. We would know who Dale Arden was and, Zarkov and Ming still, but there would be nothing new in the world, which is kind of a bummer. So, yeah, I think it's better off. I think we're better off because we got something new. We're always better off when we get something new, I think. Sonora Shishish sends in a tip and says, have you seen J. Michael Murrow's 1987 melt movie masterpiece, Street Trash? I saw Street Trash in the theater. A movie so profane that it's comical. A villain carries a femur bone as a knife. People melt to death in colorful, gelatinous glop. And a game of severed penis keep away. Thoughts? Look, I think Street Trash it's a trauma. Isn't Street Trash trauma? I don't know if it is. I don't remember. But it is a glorious exploitation movie. My problem with, it's too campy. I mean, it kind of has to be. And again, I like my exploitation more on the serious side. But yeah, I saw Street Trash, and it is, there's a lot of those there's a whole pantheon of those movies. I mean, to me, like a movie like Frank Henlotter's Basket Case skirts the edge of what kind of exploitation I like. I don't like necessarily when it goes into Street Trash territory, although there is something to be said. I found Street Trash amusing. I laughed aloud. But yeah, it's really profane. I would something like Blood-Sucking Freaks might make a good double bill with Street Trash. Like I didn't love those movies because I thought that they really, believe it or not, even I have a line for what kind of exploitation I want to see, if that makes any sense. But yeah, I mean, it was a hoot. I just don't dig those movies anymore. Like I got older, I kind of grew out of that. But they were definitely sort of the equivalent of punk rock. But yeah. Willis sends in a tip and says, how do you feel about censorship of foreign-made content? Sailor Moon, when it was released in North America, removed all nudity and straight-washed several gay characters, including Uranus and Neptune, who were changed to cousins instead of lovers. Willow, to be honest, I hate it. And the first time I was made aware of the censorship of foreign material was in Star Blazers, in Space Battleship Yamato. And the first time I was really aware of it is I bought a Laserdisc. Of course, Space Battleship Yamato is what Star Blazers is in America. And in the beginning of Star Blazers, in the beginning of Space Battleship Yamato in Japan, it opens with World War II and the Yamato being sunk by an American torpedo launched off a plane. And you see that, and when I bought this Japanese, it's like a Japanese music video Laserdisc, and it showed that sequence, and I was like, oh my, I had no idea. And then I realized, of course, you bring it to America, the Yamato, I mean, the pride and joy of the Japanese fleet was sunk by the Americans. Well, you kind of have to show how did the Yamato get to the bottom of the ocean. I mean, it was a big part of it, and then I realized how much more violent, when I started buying the Yamato movies that had not been released in America yet, such as Be Forever Yamato, there's a lot of violence. I mean, when aliens invade Earth, they come down and they're like shooting at elevated trains and killing everybody in the trains. And I'm like, oh my God. Again, I think it comes down to our culture and the infantilization of children. The fact that we need to protect them in entertainment from the real world. And when the real world has school shootings and what goes on with social media, it just, to me, it seems so strange. It's so strange, but I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right. I don't think Americans want to deny reality to their children, and I've never really understood it. I mean, as I've told people once, my Aunt Barbara used to buy my dad's sister, my Aunt Barbara, who's still alive in her 90s, would buy me books. That's what she would buy me for my birthday and for the holidays. And I would buy books that were so wholly not appropriate for my age group. And I remember once, the woman at the bookstore asked my kindly Aunt Barbara, how old I was. And I think it was 11 or 12, getting Frank Herbert's The Fog, and not Frank Herbert, James Herbert's The Fog and The Dark and The Survivor. And the bookseller did not want my aunt to buy these books for me. But I'm not a fan of that. I think that's the kind of place where kids can learn, and especially when you're getting a window into another culture. But then again, it's easy for me to say I don't have kids, but I don't believe it. Sonora Shish is back again. Why not follow trends of other franchises like Terminator: Dark Fate, Halloween 18, Superman Returns, and have Cavill Man of Steel sequels ignore Batman v Superman, Justice League, and Suicide Squad completely? In other words, ignore the bad, divisive films like they never occurred and pick up the story after the good films. I think that's a great idea. I mean, why not? Why not just do that? I see nothing wrong with that at all. But now in the world, the problem is now everybody's expecting, well, how does that fit into the shared universe of all of it? And I don't necessarily disagree, but I think you're right about that. I think you're absolutely correct about that, because you can. Miles Ellis. Wow, Miles, thank you very much for supporting the channel like that. Hey, Rob, I was wondering if you have ever seen Jodorowsky's Dune. Well, I've never seen it because he never got to make it. Aha. Yes, I love Jodorowsky's Dune. For those of you who might be wondering, Alejandro Jodorowsky, who made movies like The Holy Mountain and Santa Sangre and El Topo, one of our premier cult directors, who's bonkers. And by the way, if you want to, I highly recommend everybody, if you want to get into Jodorowsky and you think his older movies are a little weirder, Santa Sangre is actually, I think, a legitimately straight up great movie. And it's pretty crazy, but to me, it's like peak Jodorowsky, and I think it's his most accessible movie to watch. So what he was going to do in the 70s was Jodorowsky was going to make Dune. And he was pretty far down the road, and he was working with incredible artists, people like Chris Foss. I think he was working, Mobius did some designs, and there's a documentary about the unmade film of Dune that Jodorowsky was going to make. And it's one of the great, I think, first of all, Jodorowsky himself is so insane and entertaining and awesome. He's a mad genius. And obviously his vision of Dune would have been, I think, amazing to see, because it would have been just bonkers. And the movie, Steven Scarlatta, who I work with on Femme Fatales and who also does the Greatest Movies Never Made podcast that I've actually been on, he was one of the people that made Jodorowsky's Dune. And I think it's a terrific documentary about a movie that never got made. And I wholeheartedly recommend everybody check it out. Miles Ellis goes on to say, Miles goes, it's one of my favorite docs, as I love to think what could have been with movies. I'm so hyped for Dune. Villeneuve is hands down my favorite director right now. Well, I think Denis Villeneuve is one of the great directors working today. I really love his work. I mean, his whole oeuvre. Incendies I want to go back and watch again. But, whether it's Enemy or Prisoners, or, of course, now he's going to have a triptych of science fiction films with Arrival, Blade Runner 2049, and Dune. I can't wait to see Dune. I'm expecting great things. I've read the script, obviously. I thought the script was terrific, and it was a great distillation. By the way, I think it was King Waspinator. Our man King Waspinator sent in a really great letter that I want to get to about Dune, specifically Duncan, Idaho. It's pretty great, and we will get into that. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says Comic-Con probably waited so long so they could claim the force majeure clause to get out of deals with hotels and venues. They could. If they had canceled earlier, they would have had to pay the hotels a lot of money for breaking their deal. I think that's probably true, but in this case, everybody's in the same boat, and because everybody's been affected, it'll be really interesting. I don't know how it's all going to work, but you're probably right about that. But remember, Comic-Con, the thing that they did announce that Comic-Con is going to come back to San Diego, and I would imagine, they have it for a couple more years there. They always talk about moving Comic-Con to Las Vegas, but half the charm of Comic-Con is that it is in San Diego. And one of the things I've always loved about Comic-Con is the nightlife and the life outside of the convention center. It's a lot of fun. And I think going to Vegas would remove some of that. Maybe that's just me. I just like San Diego as a venue. I like I usually have one event or one dinner at the Hotel Del Coronado, which is fun. And I would miss it if it wasn't there anymore. But you might be right about that. Yeah. Atticatch Sounds says Jordy will have Cyclops powers because zap. Oh, God forbid. Don't give them any ideas. Please don't say that. That would be monumentally not good. I would not like that at all. Don't give them any ideas. Eric Gant says, Hail almighty Kwisatz Haderach of the hip haberdashery. I don't know about that. I need a good haberdasher. Just chiming in to say I dig your taste in t-shirts. Oh, thank you. Fun. I have two of these. This is my old one. It was clean though. The Weyland-Yutani logo is prominently featured on the targeting screen of Mal's cannon in the Firefly episode Serenity. Peace. Is that true? Does that mean that the Weyland-Yutani Corporation is canonical to Firefly? Wow. I didn't know that. That's very cool. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip. How are you, Alexander Wilson? Are you staying okay? Oh, wait a minute. Hang on. I'm not there yet. Felix Leiter sent in a tip too. Oh, orator of opulence, do you have any clue what Tenet is about? There's a point in the trailer where Clements Posey's character shows up. J.D. Washington, a large slab of stone that resembles a monolith, and says we're trying to prevent World War III. 2001 reference? I have no idea what Tenet is about. Obviously somebody can reverse time. I don't know what's going on. All I know is it looks dope. It looks great to me. And J.D. Washington, first of all, I love Denzel Washington, and I love the fact that his son is almost as badass as he is. Maybe he'll supplant his father as the ultimate badass, but I will watch anything that Denzel Washington is in. I just love Denzel Washington, and I love that his son is, Black Klansman, and now this. I can't wait. I don't know what it's about. I'm glad I don't know what it's about. I color me stoked. I'm very intrigued. I can't wait. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip and says, the last episode of Better Call Saul was gripping. Don't tell me. I'm not caught up. I think it's the best show on TV. Are you caught up? I'm not. Also, the director of the last episode said the actors rehearsed on their own, and that saved them 2 days of shooting. How helpful is that when shooting? Well, let me tell you something. The better prepared actors are, the better you can be. Because a lot of the time, look, there is... I always lament the fact that you go back and you look at how not old movies, but, movies 10, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that actors, they would build rehearsal time into the schedules. So the actors would get paid for weeks or sometimes a week or weeks of rehearsal. And I think what's really interesting is, to me, as a director, if you had time to work with an actor, like if I ever am so fortunate to direct another movie, I'm going to take my cast out and I want to just hang out with them and just throw out my ideas, just free form about the characters. And if we could do acting exercises and really sort of work on on what's happening. I mean, so often when you make movies, you just go, and all you have, there is no rehearsal time. There's what's called blocking. You basically you block so you know how you're going to shoot the scene. But normally on low budget, I've never worked on big budget movies, but even on big budget movies, there's not a lot of rehearsal time anymore. People don't really rehearse. They show up, they do their job, and then they leave. And I would love it. I would love to, because I love actors. I love working with actors, and I think it could only make movies and TV better. But there's just no time. There's no rehearsal time built in, because how do you justify that on a limited budget, especially TV? Now, when you have characters and a show, like actors know, man. Actors want to be great. And the only way they can be great is if their director knows what he's or she is doing, pardon me, or whatever your pronoun is, a preference. I don't want to offend anybody. But whenever you have time and actors can work more on their material, they'll take it. So it makes sense to me that a show like Better Call Saul, that's seasons in now, that these actors, they know their characters, they know what they want the show to be, and I think that's amazing. And I think it's terrific. I think it's terrific, and I love that they did that, and I hope they do that more. And the proof is in the pudding. Everybody's talking about that episode. I must catch up. Mark C. sends in a super chat and says, for those flippant about the splash censorship, go watch season 3, episode 1 of The Simpsons. It's not on Disney Plus, Amazon Prime, and has been removed from current DVD releases. Disney erased it forever. That's the episode that has the Michael Jackson voiceover. Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, I'm not a fan of censorship. I'm just not. Like, is someone going to take away my Capricorn 1 Blu-ray disc because O.J. Simpson is in it? I mean, what's interesting is that why is it that the collective commercial art that people have created, whether it's television or movies or things, why is that somehow tainted by people's either alleged behavior or actual behavior? What does that have to do with anything? I mean, you know, I'm never going to not enjoy L.A. Confidential because Kevin Spacey, the human being, could have been a douchebag. Like, why? When I'm watching an actor play a role, I can't equate the two. I'm watching a character in a movie. You know, I don't make that leap. I mean, when I'm watching a film, I just don't do that. Maybe that's a shortcoming that I have, but I just don't. Attacatch Sound sends in a super chat and says, LeVar Burton script, pew pew. I hope not. I hope he does not become Cyclops. Did I miss that when you were saying Attacatch said, yeah, Cyclops powers? That'd be so terrible. I hate that. So yes, Mark C. sends in a super chat and says, The Simpsons episode's been erased due to Michael Jackson's involvement. We are censoring due to a dead man. That, by the way, has allegedly done these things. And went, was in a court of law, and many things transpired there. And I think that does Michael Jackson's alleged crimes supersede the work that everybody else did on The Simpsons? Now, I understand James Brooks came out and said, well, it's our book, and if we want to remove a chapter, we can. I mean, I don't know. That, to me, seems so strange that you would do that. I just don't understand. Anonymous sends in a tip and said, I'm about to sit back, relax, and watch Free Enterprise on Amazon on Amazon Prime. The resolution's not that bad with a bottle of wine. Also, I was rewatching The Wire, and the political bureaucracy speaks so well today. Also, the HD version is weird. Yeah, you know what? I looked at I did not buy The Wire on HD. I have the DVDs, but I didn't buy the HD version. They reformatted it into 16:9, and it's color timed differently, and it looks good, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't know about that. I'm sorry you're watching Free Enterprise. That's not my preferred version of the movie. But no, I guess watch it. Write in. Tell me what you think. I hope you like it. I don't know if you've seen it. I just can't stand that it's 4:3, and it drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. So what can you do? Paul Gilmore sends in a tip and says, "Hi Rob, there's one more episode of Better Call Saul, and the trailers look amazing. Can't wait till Monday for the finale. I'm sure it's going to be epic. They're going to do one more season, right? I think they're doing one more season. That's amazing." Dangerous Lee sends in a tip and says, "I'm sure it's been mentioned already, but Rob, Bruce Lee's greatest hits coming soon from the Criterion Collection. I'm so stoked. Any general thoughts about Bruce and this release?" Well, I'm a huge Bruce Lee fan, and I think this release is going to be great. I'm really digging what Criterion's been doing. I wish they would put out 4K discs rather than just give us Blu-ray versions of their 4K remasters. But I can't wait. I can't wait to get the whole. What's going to be fun is it'll be fun because I've watched Bruce Lee movies sporadically. Like I never sat down and watched them all at once. I watched them on TV as a kid, and then I got various other video releases of Bruce Lee movies. I had Bruce Lee movies on Laserdisc, and it's going to be nice to sit down and I want to watch them all at once and have this curated. There's different versions in this collection, and watch the special features, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. So they're also releasing, of course, War of the Worlds, which sucks because I ordered that Australian Blu-ray because no one was putting it out. I had no idea Criterion was putting it out, but oh well. BL Alley sends in a tip and says, "Rob, what about Frankenheimer's The Train? So good. I'm a huge John Frankenheimer fan, and I have The Train on Blu-ray. I also have it on Laserdisc as well." I know people are like, "What? You used to have Laserdiscs?" I do. I still have them. That's not bad. The Train's pretty good. Elizabeth would like that because it's about Burt Lancaster protecting art from the Nazis. So there you go. And the 1940 version of Gaslight, the BFI remaster. Ooh, for whining. I don't have that. I need to get that. That's good. Also, I hope someday you will share your objections regarding relative age. As a creator, I'm sure you can appreciate my curiosity. Do I have objections to it? I will do that, but if I show the book, you'll get apoplectic and get mad at me. That's not a bad idea, though. Paul Gilmore is here and says, "By the way, Rob, you missed my comment earlier about J.J. Abrams putting together the Shining and Justice League Dark series. Did I? Well, let me get back to that. And how it's hard for me to trust what he does anymore. It will depend on the talent behind the shows, but still haven't been a fan of his stuff." For what... I'm sorry I missed that, Paul. It was announced yesterday that J.J. Abrams is doing a Justice League Dark series for HBO Max, and they are also doing a Stephen King series based on The Shining called The Overlook Hotel. Again, for me, J.J. Abrams is hit and miss. I mean, Castle Rock, it's been hit and miss for me. I liked some of it. But, he becomes sort of a figurehead, and it really, like you said, depends who's going to be the showrunner. So many people have developed Justice League Dark. I really wanted to see Guillermo del Toro do it. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think J.J. Abrams has been more successful on television, at least for me, than what he's given us as far as movies are concerned. So we shall see about that. I don't know. Sorry, I missed that, Paul. But, look, as much as I cannot stand J.J. Abrams' feature films, I've liked his television, what he's produced. I mean, I thought Lost was hit and miss. I did think the final season was the greatest audience portrayal in television history. And, Person of Interest has some great stuff going in it. I really liked Alias a lot until the second season when they destroyed SD6 in that Super Bowl episode and ruined it. But it always starts good. So yeah. Absh3841 sends in a tip and says, "Rob, what did you think of Avatar: The Last Airbender?" I have not watched all the show. I've only, to be honest, watched 2 episodes of it, and that was because I hadn't seen the show before the movie came out, and I wanted to know about it. But everyone says, to this day, it's my favorite show, you say. Everybody says that. Everyone loves The Last Airbender. And it's one of those things I should catch up on. I mean, as people know, I'm an anime fan, and I do like a lot of that. It's just one of those shows I haven't caught up with. So, yeah. I should check that out, because everyone says it's aces. And I know it probably is. I mean, you could tell. But I haven't seen the whole thing. Wanderlust73 says, TNG movie pet peeve, Data's emotion chip becomes fully integrated in Generations, to it being able to be turned off and on in First Contact, to a chip that could be left on the Enterprise on away missions in Insurrection, to not being mentioned in Nemesis. Yeah, you know what? I thought the emotion chip that they could that Data could put in and out of his head at will, I never liked that. I mean, that was the whole point, is that Data could never be human and all of that. But the emotion chip, yeah, it was never dealt with in the movies very well. I always thought that was a mistake, and I did not dig it. So I agree with you. It's a pet peeve of mine as well. But I understand why they want to do that, because, of course, Brent Spiner wants to be able to play emotions. They want to give him more to do, and I don't blame him. So I can't get mad about that. So, yeah. Who knows? I never liked that idea. Seduce Screening Room sends in a tip and says, how about that Devs finale? Or should I say Deus? Oops, spoiler alert. I thought it was really well done. Also, working on a video essay for the new Dune movie. We'll send it through when I'm done editing. I can't wait to get it. I did really like the Devs ending. I thought it stuck the landing. However, I thought it was going to be, I really wanted more of a more mind-blowing existential position. I thought where they left off was fine, and it sort of had a romantic ending, a romantic happy ending, but I really wanted more of a mind-blowing science fiction ending because of where it was going in episode 7. I thought it was going to have a much more existential, the existential ramifications would have been much bigger, if that makes any sense. So, yeah. Calvin Bose sends in a tip and says, do you think the Star Trek Con will be canceled in August? I got our tickets and was planning to take my 3 little Trekkies with me. Braxton wants to meet Geordi. Oh, that's so cool that Braxton wants to meet Geordi. You know what? They're talking about opening Vegas. And we're going to see what happens. I think the proof is going to be in the pudding. And I think some places are going to be effectively opened for business. And I think some places, I don't know about Vegas, but they're already talking about dealers are going to be wearing gloves and masks. I know people want to go to Vegas, but man, we'll see. I know it's supposed to take place in August. COMICON's in late July. So if Vegas can be assured of keeping people safe. I mean, for me, this the COVID-19 outbreak, the pandemic, well, we'll know. I mean, the thing about the pandemics is they work pretty consistently, so we'll know exactly how it is all going to work out, and we'll know very quickly. We will know if opening the economy so quickly in certain places was a good idea or a bad idea, and I hope to God it was a good idea and that everyone stays safe and everyone is careful, and I really hope it goes well. But I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't go well. But again, I don't want to be pessimistic. I hope it goes well. So just watch carefully, and it's fun, especially I think for kids. Meeting the stars is always a good time. I think you'd have fun doing that. Claudius is here. My man Claude says, Bonjour, Monsieur Robert. I just watched Star Trek The Next Generation Season 3, Episode 6, Booby Trap again, 30 years later, and it still holds up. Picard was a badass. Oh, good Lord. Didn't anybody here build ships in bottles when they were boys? I love that. Probably not, to be honest, but it was a great line. I like Booby Trap, and the remastered version, you can really see the cool effects in that episode, because there's lots of good stuff in that episode, and the effects work is really, really good. That was one of the episodes I was anxious to get in to see how did the effects look, and they look spectacular in high def. I'm waiting for a special Elizabeth's breakdown of Amelie, how it was influenced by Sex and the City, and how that was influenced by Valley of the Dolls. Most importantly, the story of how you and Elizabeth bonded over Amelie. Yeah, well, as people know, Amelie is one of my favorite movies of all time. I first saw Amelie, I was with Steve Melching. I saw it in Spain at the Sitges Film Festival, one of my favorite, if not my favorite film festival in all the world. Sitges is a small Mediterranean town that's 20 kilometers south of Barcelona, right on the coast. And you can just take the train, hop on a train, and you can get there very quickly. It's fantastic, and it's a festival that's dedicated only to science fiction, fantasy, and horror. But Amelie, kind of magical realism, I guess. And it was great because on that same day, I saw Kyushu Kurosawa's Pulse, which, man, freaked me out. I love that movie. That's some existential dread right there. If you guys haven't seen, don't watch the American remake. Watch the Japanese version of Pulse. Arrow put out a great Blu-ray of it. I saw Pulse and Amelie in the same afternoon, and boy, did I love them. And, of course, I did meet Elizabeth bonding over Amelie. So, yes, Crosstalk says, we'll do that, Claude. We will. That's a good idea. Hey, Rob, I really wish that Hollywood would start tapping untold IPs, like maybe the Harry Turtledove World War series. That could make a good show. I'm surprised somebody hasn't done that, like a whole alt history World War III, or do something like Red Storm Rising. I think that'd be great. It'd be expensive, but that's a really good idea. On a side note, is there any progress on the Corman script for that book? Victor Coman. Oh, I have the script. I just haven't done anything with it, which I would love to do. It's my dream project, and hopefully, yeah. Alexander Wilson says, that was me as anonymous. I'm not a Dune fan, but I'll give it a chance. Since Blade Runner 2049 was a commercial flop, what are the chances of Dune being the same? What's your thoughts on Menace to Society? Clifton Powell is a good friend of my dad. I loved Menace to Society is great. I love Menace to Society. I mean, it's interesting now to go back and look at that because it is such a product of its time, but I think it still works. I mean, there was that whole genre of movies like Menace to Society or things like Set It Off too. But I loved all of those movies. And living in LA too, it was just a different. I mean, I moved to LA in '88, and it was still, the Crips and the Bloods it was still going strong, and it was, you saw a lot of that. And at USC, there's a lot of craziness that went on when I was there. So yeah. So yeah. Listen, I'm going to jump into a letter. Ladies and gentlemen, because I have many, and there's a lot of good ones today, and I would like to read them. So let's see. I'm going to start with James Kevins. Ooh, that's a whining about movies letter. So I'm going to save that letter. Let's see. This is a good one. And it fits with the comic book theme of today's show. Torrin Atkinson writes, Hi, Rob. My name is Torrin. I've been watching your live streams for a few months now, and they keep me entertained while I work, and I really appreciate you being there for the Post-Geek Singularity community. There's a lot I've thought about commenting on, but I'll try and keep this brief. First, a quick introduction. By trade, I am a storyboard artist, and I work mainly in animation, Last Kids on Earth, and I do some voice work. I voiced Doctor Strange on the Marvel Superhero Adventures series on the Disney Channel, and I'm the co-creator and lead singer of the H.P. Lovecraft-themed rock band, The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets. What a great name. I gotta find that band. There you go, everyone. The Darkest of the Hillside Thickets, an H.P. Lovecraft-themed rock band. Ooh, I gotta find you guys. I also make games and podcasts, so I'm a nerd and a creator. It's April 15th as I write this, and today is the day that the New Warriors book with Snowflake and Safe Space was slated to hit comic book store shelves. Did that actually happen today? I can't say. When I first read about the book, I had a similar reaction as you. Is this for real, or is it a joke? I read the article and watched the promo video. I was waiting for some kind of wink or nudge, but it does indeed seem to be in earnest. It all seems so ludicrous and stupid. A jock who can make pink protective force fields, but only around other people? A goth vampire kid named B Negative? It seems like half-baked ideas spitballed in a meeting that would never actually be realized. It's obviously just a stunt to get publicity and stir up controversy, right? And I thought, why is my initial reaction so strong and dismissive? Maybe I'm wrong, that it's something deeper that the writer really believes in, and is important to them and to the book's prospective audience. We both know how easy it is to criticize, and we both know how much work it is to actually create. Here's a team of artists that is creating something new and different, and maybe it's not for me. But maybe, also, it is. These characters are taking terms that are meant to be derogatory and making them their own. I actually identify with this, specifically with regard to the term social justice warrior. I do indeed appreciate and tout social justice. I would never call myself a warrior since I rarely get out to protests or actually take the time to write letters to my local politicians. But I think you get where I'm coming from. Justice, social or otherwise, is not a bad thing. Safe spaces and snowflakes, likewise, are not necessarily bad things. It's all about context. Although I don't always agree with your statements and opinions, I've noticed you have a refreshingly considered approach to changes and trends in the industry. Many YouTubers have a knee-jerk reaction to any modern phenomenon they perceive as too woke, whereas I feel you've got an acute perception on character and writing that doesn't get hung up on the cosmetics like gender swapping and diverse casting. Well, I appreciate you saying that. I try. That said, I don't remember exactly what your take was when these new warriors came up, but I remember it being unfavorable. And hey, I absolutely recognize it's okay to critique any media and any promo for unreleased media. But I think maybe you missed your considered approach this time, dismissing it from a gut reaction, like I did. Maybe, just maybe, this is part of an important cultural stepping stone to whatever is next. Maybe it will mean something profound to someone who is not me or you. Maybe it will actually be a real work of art, expressing something important and emotional that makes us reflect on ourselves. Or maybe it'll be crap, it'll age terribly. The proof, as you have said, is in the pudding. I will reserve judgment until I read it, and I've actually asked my local comic shop to hold a copy for me. And if nothing else, I admire this writer for putting his work out there. Thanks for reading. Hope to hear your thoughts. Best fishes, Torin. Well, first of all, Torin, what a great letter, and thanks for writing in. Here's my problem, my initial problem with all of this. I guess when I read something, I don't like it when the author is telling me right away, when his characters are named Snowflake and Safe Space, I feel that I have one of two ways to go. Either my initial reaction is supposed to be one of, well, that's stupid, or he's setting me up, or she's setting me up to have those expectations dashed and subverted by telling a great story. And I would hope the latter is true. I would hope that that would be the case. However, I don't think anyone has ever been done any favors by being beaten over the head with messaging. I don't like that. I think that actually gets in the way of a story, because I don't like the fact that the author of a story will presuppose to know something better than I do. Like, I think I really like reading stories that you can sort of understand the meaning through the story that's being told, and you're allowed to bring some of yourself into a great story. Like, I think what a great author does, a great author presupposes intelligence on the part of their audience. Same with great filmmakers. They're not, great filmmakers are telling great stories in a very deft way. And I think the best stories begin by assuming intelligence on the part of the audience. And I feel that, Snowflake and Safe Space seems to me to be the kind of thing you would see as one of the parody commercials in RoboCop. And unless there's a whole lot of subversion going on and looking at these characters, I think Snowflake and Safe Space are about 5 years beyond their expiration date. I think by doing them now, they seem to be a little late to the party. But then again, like you, anybody who's going to do work and put it out there, I want the work to be good. I do not like it. I don't like it ever when somebody disappoints me. It bums me out because I want everything to be good. I go into everything wanting it to be good. I go into every episode of Picard wanting to like it. I take no pleasure in disliking something other people have made, especially when it comes to movies and television. I also don't understand how things in this day and age can disappoint me. I don't. I'm baffled by that, and I'm an easy lay. You know, I have a pretty high tolerance for a lot of stuff, and I'm you know, you can have your way with me. I will give myself over to you, and I'm always disappointed when it turns out to be whatever I'm watching or reading is a disappointing experience. I don't like that, and I'm hoping. I think you're making a good point. I don't think it's wrong to necessarily to do something like this. But I do wonder, when you're making the New Warriors, especially where they came from. I mean, I have all the original issues of the first run of New Warriors, and these just it just seems like I feel like I'm being talked down to, that I'm not being allowed. Again, like you said, the comic might be incredibly subversive and come at it from an entirely different perspective. And if that's the case, well then, I'm happy to go up and say, you know what, I was wrong about this. This comic turned out to be quite excellent. However, it's not just it's the whole design of the characters, and it's not just these characters of Snowflake and Safe Space. It looks like the entire team. And again, it seemed to, at least on my initial glance, having not read the story, it seemed to violate my axiom, which is never put your agenda or your universe before your characters and your story. But again, like you, Torin, I have not read the comic, and I will reserve my final judgment. I always reserve my final judgment until I've seen something and can make up my own mind. But I do appreciate you saying that I tried to have my perspective. I look, again, you know, you never know. You never know until you've read things and been like, wow, that was surprisingly good. I didn't expect how good that turned out to be. And I love it when that happens. So in the case of this comic, I think that's okay. I just, you know, what I find so strange about a lot of what has been passing for what we call social justice now is I don't like that so many people immediately assume that other people have done things that are wrong or are victims of wrong think. I don't meet people and immediately assume that they think something that is necessarily bad. I think that everybody has to understand that the world is a very gray place with a lot of nuance, and there is no one answer to everything. I mean, I think there's one answer to the fact that Nazis were bad. There's no right answer about that. However, you could say that what Germany was able to do after being beaten and demoralized in World War I, how they were able to restart their economy and create that war machine, well, that was pretty impressive. I mean, what they did with that was horrific. And can you imagine if they decided to do something, I don't know, beneficial and not want to take over all of Europe, not want to bring back the fatherland? I mean, you know, imagine if they had figured out something else they wanted to do. Like what if instead of bent on creating an Aryan race, they wanted to conquer the stars? Like, you know what? We've been able to muster our forces, and we're going to go to the moon, and we're inviting the rest of the world, come in here. We figured out a way. We're going to go mine the moon, and we're going to make all of humanity better off and give people jobs all over the world and cause people to dream. That could have been a better use of that amazing spirit that they were able to generate in Germany in the 30s. But that was not to be. But anyway, I love this letter. Thank you for writing in. It's great letter. But we'll see. I'll be very curious to hear your take. It'll and you know what? We'll know soon enough. We will know soon enough. And I don't know if it's going to be a good thing or a bad thing. This next letter comes. Oh, this is a good letter. This letter comes from Simon Gilmore. And Simon Gilmore is responding. Well, I'll just read it. Rob, a couple of days ago, someone sent you a question about when to color grade VFX plates. I just thought I would chip in my 2 cents on how these things work. I was pretty general about this, but this letter gets more specific, and it's a good letter. First off, these things get quite technical and cannot be answered simply, which I was grappling with. So this may be a tad long. What he is responding to here, what Simon is responding to, is somebody wrote in the other day and asked, when do you color your footage? So if you have raw live action footage that's going to be combined with effects footage, do you do the compositing first and then do you color grade the image later? Or do you wait until, because obviously if you have a whole image, it's much more difficult. Now with power windows, it's not as hard as it used to be. There's a lot more latitude. And I sort of addressed that problem. My experience with that is when I was editing Skyfighter, I basically was post-supervising Skyfighter, but when I was editing Skyfighter, we had the film and we had all of our shots, our live action footage. We color timed it first, and then we sent it to our effects house. Because how the effects were going to look, it was all live action footage that they were inserting holograms into, so there was interactive light and they had to make it look like our final color timed image, and it was very close to the actors, so it would have been very, very difficult to do it another way. So we color timed our footage first, and then we sent our color timed live action footage to our effects house. Anyway, the real answer is, I'm going back to Simon's letter. The real answer is every production comes up with their own plan to fit their workflow. It's a collaboration between the colorist and the VFX supervisor to decide, with input from editorial and ultimate sign-off from the post supervisor, who usually just makes sure the conversion happens and a decision is made. On major productions, the colorist will get the shots and do a neutral balance grade, then a creative look on top of that. VFX will receive the action plate unaltered, the color-corrected plate with a neutral balance, and a look LUT. Inside their VFX software, Nuke, for example, they can use both plates, as well as apply the look LUT as a sort of preview of what direction the final look is going to go. The look LUT is just a rough draft of the final look, though. When they render, the look will not be applied. It'll either be with the AP or CC plate and matching to it. That's where it's a matter of philosophy for each show. The director of photography is creatively supervising and signing off on any color decisions the colorist makes. Some DPs are very hands-on with that, others don't want to be bothered with it. I have found in my experience that every DP would like to be involved. Oftentimes they won't get paid much or anything extra to put time into supervising that work. That is very true, but I found mostly DPs will want to be at least offered the opportunity to be involved with that process. So it's hard for them to justify putting in the time. Also, they may be shooting another movie already and be unavailable. That's one of the reasons a good DCP colorist relationship is vital. If they trust each other, that's digital DPC colorist. A DP, there's no slash there. What he's saying is that's one of the reasons a good director of photography colorist relationship is vital. If they trust each other, the DP can leave it up to the colorist and knows that he or she can still do final tweaks in the finishing sessions. Also, this stuff gets quite technical and is over the heads of most directors of photography, although that's changing very much lately. So in general, the colorist is taking the lead in all of these decisions in most cases, but not all DPs are equal. Some are very talented and passionate. Others are hacks and make you wonder why they got hired in the first place. I agree with that. This letter went a little longer than I originated, but I hope this helps anyone who is delving into VFX or color grading. Thanks. Simon Gilmore, 2 Flicks on YouTube. Well, Simon, great letter. You are correct. I mean, basically, the problem is what you want now, everybody's shooting digitally. So in my experience, and what I was saying is that usually you should pick your color timing. I mean, Simon's detailing a bigger workflow. I wasn't going to get into that because, yes, everything he said is absolutely true. And he explained it in a very succinct and easily understood manner. But I agree with everything he said. It really is up to the workflow of whatever production. But in my experience, yes, he's also correct that a director of photography usually has a colorist that they already work with who knows what they're going for. And a colorist is doing the final tweak. So it's always beneficial when you have a colorist and a DP that work together. And I would insist that the DP at least has an opportunity. Maybe they don't want to sit in the color sessions all day long where you're color grading a whole movie, but at least offer them the opportunity. And I've found in my experience, most of them want to do that even on their own time because it's an extension of what their work's going to look like forever. And so they want to get it right. But that's a great letter. Thank you for writing in. Regis Conan writes in and says, "Hello, Grand Master of Imagination. I've wanted to ask, have you read Frank Herbert's The Godmakers? I have not. It contains a lot of proto-ideas present in Dune, namely a female order, a god in the making, and the same resolution structure. I really loved it as a nice prelude to Dune, even if it was published in 1972. Thank you for your great channel." You know what, Regis? I haven't read that book. I need to read that book. I like Frank Herbert, and I more than just Dune, and I think that would be something I would probably. It's right up my alley in terms of what I like. So, yeah, I mean, I'll definitely look into that. This one comes from Stephen Goggin. "Dear Rob and listeners, I hope you're all doing well in these strange times. Like most other folk, I have lots of time on my hands and more time to do indoor stuff I like to do. My diet is making like most other folk, I have lots of time on my hands, more time to do indoor stuff. I like to do my diet is making lots of art, watching movies, and playing Xbox games, mainly Horizon Forza and Train SimWorld 2020. I think there was a little some punctuation you missed in there. Some movies that have left an impression on me so far are Silent Hill. I knew nothing of this movie. I got it on standard DVD in a charity shop for $1 or £1. I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't even know it was based on a game. The way they edit the movie and how the movie just flowed and the quality of the standard DVD were all impressive, and what I look for in a movie as well as a good story. The second movie I enjoyed, I also got at a charity shop on the Blu-ray DVD for 50 pence. And it's a Norwegian subtitled horror film called Troll Hunter, a delightful film. I thought this was excellent and reminded me of a modern Blair Witch movie, but better. And again, the editing flows nicely in this film. The third movie is another subtitled movie and one that you recommended, and that is Amelie. I was blown away by this wonderful movie. I'd never heard of it until you talked about it, and it looks as if this is going to be one of my favorite films. It is mine. I cannot wait to see if Amelie gets a 4K DVD release. Ugh, one could only hope. My last movie in this letter is another French movie, and that's The Fifth Element. Love The Fifth Element. Again, I really enjoyed it, though I thought it dragged here and there. Really? In its storytelling, but it all over, it's a wonderful time to watch. I also got this on standard DVD, and I thought this is one of the best quality DVDs I have. Every format, the Fifth Element has been reference quality. How do they make the quality of a standard DVD really, really good, and sometimes the quality of a Blu-ray or a 4K is not that good? I watched the trailer of another movie that you recommended, and that is The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, and I thought, wow, this looks amazing. So I've ordered the standard DVD from Amazon, and I should have this by the weekend. Thank you for your wonderful show. It is a tonic, especially in this time of social distancing. Live long and prosper. Yours truly, Stephen G., the Irishman in Somerset. P.S. Another great standard edition I found on DVD is Alien. The first film, I have the standard Alien quadrilogy box set, and I found the quality amazing to watch on my Samsung QLED TV. Sometimes I find the quality of standard DVDs excellent. Yeah, DVDs were excellent, for their time. The question that you ask really has to do with, a lot of the time, it has to do with the movie itself. A movie like Aliens, for instance, it has a lot of grain in it because of the way it was made, whereas Alien is less so. And so people have always asked me things like, well, why isn't it as good? And really it comes down to the photochemical process that is used and the film stocks and the way things are lit. And certain DVDs can look terrific. And when you bump them up you really have to have a deft touch. A lot of times movies, they just throw it on, they put it up, and whatever they have, you know, and it's a bummer. It's an art. Transferring films is an art, and it's a very important art, and the people that do it are true artisans, and they need to pay attention. Absolutely. They need to pay attention to what they're doing. I can't wait to hear what you think of The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, though. Because that'll be interesting. This one comes from John D. I don't think you read my last letter. I'm sure it got lost in the deluge of correspondence you get every day. I'll try again. First of all, I don't read every letter. Because that would be, I think, next to impossible. But and then what happens is I look at letters on a daily basis. So if I don't read it right away, and it has no bearing on whether your letter was necessarily good or not. But then it sort of gets lost in the shuffle. But the ones I don't read, we have to update the website, but they usually wound up on the website. So I don't think you read my last letter. I'm sure it got lost in the deluge of correspondence you get every single day. I'll try again. I was watching recently when you were on the John Campea show, and I immediately saw behind you in the Robservatory. Oh, wait, I already read this. I read this from yesterday. You're asking about this. Yes, I read this letter yesterday. So there you go. It didn't get lost. I read it. You were asking about the Skywalker saga, which I have yet to watch. So there you go. You should buy it. Tell your wife. Save up. Nigel Lowry is here and says, greetings from the UK, Rob. Due to international time differences, I usually binge each of your shows over each weekend, but thanks to the current clampdown, I'm now working from home and I'm able to listen to your shows each day as I work. I was laughing out loud today watching you skirt around describing Howard Chaykin's Black Kiss. You noticed, did you? Having read both volumes, saying it's about filmmaking is certainly not the first description I would have chosen, but it was very funny if you know the subject matter. I sent in a letter a few weeks back, which you graciously read out loud, and felt like contributing again, but I don't have any real subject that's running around my mind, but I do have a few subjects it would be interesting to hear your thoughts on. A passing comment from one of your letter writers touched on one of my pet peeves in science fiction. I know when human characters end up getting it on with alien characters, such as maybe Troy and Worf, Johnny Storm and his Skrull wife, Lyja, and somebody married to a cat person in a David Tennant-era Doctor Who story, that these relationships are allegories for interracial or intercultural relationships. But they most definitely are not. It's humans having sex with biological non-humans. In effect, the same as getting randy with an animal. At least in Babylon 5, Delenn transformed into a mostly human form when shacking up with Sheridan. I am open-minded, and I'm mostly a liberal guy, but my friends laugh when I say I struggle with what is essentially consensual but non-human sex. Rob, what's your thoughts about the morality of smooching up to a Gamorrean guard, cavorting with a talking simian, or getting frisky with an Ewok? On to a less base subject. As a fellow comic fan, I wondered if you've read one of my favorite comic series. A British writer dusted off a DC superhero name from their legendary golden age of comics and introduced a new possessor to that name, telling their entire story within its own series that lasted for a few years before the writer tied up the story and DC retired the characters, agreeing to never let another writer touch them without the author's permission. No, I'm not talking about Neil Gaiman's Sandman, but James Robinson's masterful Starman, mostly drawn by Tony Harris and Peter Sneberg. Spinning out of yet another continuity tweaking DC crossover, this series was only one of 5 new series to last, as it introduced Jack Knight, a reluctant successor, as his elderly father's place as Starman, defender of Opal City. Jack wasn't particularly likable at the start of the series. He refused to even wear a costume, mostly despite his dad. But by the conclusion, he had grown and become not only a great hero, but also a responsible adult. Robinson deftly worked in many obscure and forgotten DC characters, forming a narrative that was a love letter to the DCU in general and was genuinely emotional at times. I was super excited when it nearly got adapted into a TV series during the Smallville years, but the upcoming Stargirl series kind of carries that mantle forward. Now collected in various formats, I wonder what you may have thought of it and what I believe to be one of DC's best and most underrated series. I have it right over there, and I love Starman. I love that show. I love that series, and you are correct. It is a great, great series. On a similar note, another of my favorite comic series of all time is Lock and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. Reading comics issue by issue, I can handle fill-in creators. Starman handled this well by planning for fill-ins and allocating stories to guest artists that were set in the past and shed new light on the ongoing narrative, but I find it really jarring, so I appreciate collections by dedicated creative teams. Moore and Gibbons on Watchmen, Wolfman and Perez on Crisis on Infinite Earths, Innes and Dillon on Preacher, etc. helps create a sense of consistency and authorship. As a result, Lock and Key was one of my most satisfying comic reads, with even throwaway moments such as Calvin and Hobbes tribute. I loved Calvin and Hobbes, coming back later to pay off emotionally. I was greatly anticipating the show and thankfully loved it, even being thrown off by a few new twists. What did you think of either the comic, I love the comic, or the TV series? I liked the TV series quite a bit, actually. I thought it was pretty good. Everybody seemed to be watching the show when it premiered, but it doesn't seem to have the afterlife of Stranger Things. Yeah, it doesn't, but I thought it maybe resonated more. It is good, and I'm looking for. I think it got renewed. I'm pretty sure it did, right? I've been revisiting some DVD special features during lockdown, starting with The Amazing Lord of the Rings before skipping the Hobbit ones, which I watched originally, but the bad taste of the actual movies has kind of soured even the excellent features. Why did Lord of the Rings succeed where The Hobbit failed creatively when it was produced mainly by the same team? I think it comes down to story. The Hobbit was made into a trilogy for commercial reasons, but creatively there isn't enough story and it becomes uninvolving. Anyway, I rewatched your Making of Tron feature last night. Wow. Which left me with a few technical questions I wondered if you could answer. It's basically, what is the process of creating an oral history such as this? You must have hours and hours of footage of people going over the same moments from different perspectives. That's true. Forming a narrative must be like sculpting as you shape your material into the shape you want. Do you have a narrative in your mind before you sit down to film your subjects, or do their discussions lead the structure? How do you pick what to use or discard, and how long did it take to construct all the footage into the result you wanted? What a great question. Finally, I know you're not a sitcom guy, but have you ever seen Community? I have seen Community, and I love Community. I have it all on DVD, but it has just returned to Netflix and is probably the best cinema and pop culture inspired show since Spaced. It also is really, I find it also to be a little cinematic as well. It takes a while to get going, but it's worth a look, particularly their Halloween zombie episode, the paintball two-parters. It's fantastic. The episode, created in the animated style of 80s G.I. Joe, is also a great nostalgia watch, and that show never made it to the UK. Although Brian Hitch started out on the Marvel UK Weekly comic, tying into the anglicized toy range. Anyway, apologies if this is drone on, but thanks again for the continued work on the shows. I watch more YouTube than TV now, and your knowledge and generally positive, unless talking about Star Trek, Picard, or Discovery, tone really lifts the channel. Thanks again, and being on the Phil O. Oh, that's the other guy. Bring on the Phil. Oh, bring on the Phil. No, it's okay. I like bringing on the filthy too, but it's John's catchphrase. Good question. First of all, let me take these questions backwards. So yes, when you are making a documentary, I have found it best to not have an agenda when you are asking people questions. What you want to do is you want to get your subject that you're shooting to be as comfortable as you can with you, so you can ask whatever question you want. Now, it's a skill. You have to know how to ask people questions and build a rapport with them, with people you don't know and that don't know you. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But when people are talking about their past work, so when I was talking about Tron, obviously I had a lot of love and knowledge about Tron, which comes through in the questions that I ask. So what happens is I do try, when I'm making documentaries about movies, for instance, and I'm talking to people like, look, I did a lot of interviews on the Lord of the Rings discs about Gollum. The only people I didn't interview about Gollum was actually Andy Serkis himself and Peter Jackson, because Michael Pellerin, my boss, would save those interviews. He wanted to do those himself. But I think I did 40 different interviews with all the creative team that was involved with bringing Gollum to life. So what you do is you sit down and you talk. It's like a snowball effect. Your first subject on the first person you're talking to on the subject of Gollum, you get them talking, and then suddenly you are getting all kinds of knowledge you didn't have before. And hopefully, the way I like to do it is I don't like to work with questions that I've written down. I do it off the top of my head. I mean, first of all, I need to know as much as I can about my interview subject first, but I want to be able to speak extemporaneously with them so I can be looking at them straight on, and I can interview them. I don't want to keep asking questions, because what I want to do is I want them to tell me in their own words what I want to know. And so I found that it's best to ask questions of people and have a conversation and see where the conversation goes. I feel that you get much better answers that way. You develop a much better rapport with somebody, and they feel more comfortable talking to you in that way. And what's interesting is every time you've asked questions with somebody, then you get more knowledge. And then each time you're doing interviews about something, you know more and more and more about the subject, which means you can speak extemporaneously about more and more things, and people feel more and more comfortable. So it's a great way to do these documentaries. So once you have all of that material, the material that you've shot tends to define the story that you're telling, because you found things out that you didn't know. And in my mind, when I'm making documentaries, DVD documentaries or Blu-ray documentaries, today I'm delivering the final pieces. I've done 13 pieces for the Hills Run Red Blu-ray, and I think it's over 3 hours now, 3 hours of material that I've edited together, that I've gone back and created. And what you want to do ultimately, because I love movies, I go into it. My only agenda when I'm doing DVD things about movies and television is to celebrate the creative process. That's what I have found that is my overarching agenda. It's very general, but I never go into a documentary thinking, well, I want to disparage these people, or if there's controversies on set, I'm going to delve into that. It's always about the creative process for me. Why were creative decisions made? How were they made? Who made them? When did they make them? Why did they make them? And what's really interesting is when you have multiple people discussing the same thing, then suddenly it becomes very interesting. And so that's what I like to do, is to completely juxtapose different people talking about the same subject. And that tends to be my style. So I hope that and what you do is, a lot of people say redundant things. And so what you choose to do is you keep the person who best, whatever the element is you're discussing, I usually go to the person who best describes it. And that's how I define it. I don't say, well, I like this person better. I don't think that way. It's always the person who states whatever's going on the best. But then I also like to follow that up with somebody else to further emphasize other points about it. That's kind of how I work when I'm doing my documentary. And a lot of stuff gets tossed out. You only keep what you need. And I found that, it's really interesting. They have these oral history books. And I remember reading the oral history of MTV. It was so good. I think I read it twice. I took it I was in the bathroom for months because when I was a little kid, the only way I could stay up past my bedtime was going into the bathroom. And the bathroom was the most well-lit room in the house. So I would just go in the bathroom and I would sit on the toilet and read for an hour and a half. And I did that because my bedtime when I was a kid was 9, but I could stay in the bathroom till 10:30 and nobody paid any attention. And it was always well lit. It was a habit I developed in childhood. So I'm always reading something in the bathroom, always. And that MTV book, where what they would do is they would do like I would do in my documentaries, they would have somebody tell the story and then they would have somebody else pick up the story. And if I might recommend, my compatriot, Inglorious Trexpert and former collaborator Mark A. Altman and Ed Gross have a new book that came out called Nobody Does It Better. And it's an oral history of the James Bond franchise, and it's fascinating reading. It's hundreds of pages long, and it's great. And I kind of approach my documentaries like that. Now, your first question, that you can't get past the fact that human beings are getting it on with alien characters. That's interesting. My feeling about that is, look, human beings are relegated right now to, let's face it, other human beings. It's frowned upon if you're going to have relationships with, say, animals, because animals can't tell you whether they love you or what they want. So that's a no-no. That's the way I look at it. But look, if we meet other sentient humanoid life forms throughout the galaxy, I don't have a problem with that. People are gonna fall in love with each other. I don't know how it's gonna be to have children. I don't think that's ever gonna work. But I have absolutely no problem at all imagining a future like a Star Trek future where Amanda Grayson and Sarek of Vulcan could meet, and with a little bit of science and ingenuity, they could have a child. I don't have a problem with that. And what's interesting is, like, I ask you, so it's okay that Amanda and Sarek have a relationship because they look the same, but Troy and Worf would freak you out because Worf looks more alien? See, in my own mind, that wouldn't bother me at all. I just would assume that when you go out and you start meeting other cultures, that people are going to fall in love with one another. And I think it is and I can understand now. I'm willing to concede that we probably, without even knowing yet, because we've never met another sentient alien culture, that we would have a biological revulsion to being intimate with another species because that would not help us procreate. So I'm sure that your revulsion is partly evolutionary. So I don't think you should feel bad about having these thoughts because obviously we can't. It's a science fiction conceit. I don't know if it'll ever happen. It's a thought experiment. But like I had a fixation on Starfire from the Teen Titans. You know, if I was ever on Tamaran, the planet Tamaran, I would not mind looking for Corindar. Not Commander, but her sister's a bitch. But, you know, bring it on. I would totally hit that. I love Starfire, and she's completely alien. But it's an interesting question. I don't think, though, that you're wrong to find it sort of. I love that you said I'm an open-minded, mostly liberal guy, but my friends laugh when I say I struggle with what is essentially consensual but non-human sex. Well, I would look at it this way, dude. We have no experience. There's nothing in human history that can actually speak to the reality of that actually happening. And I would think that you right now, I think you're biologically hardwired to feel that way. So I don't think that you should think about the fact that you're mostly liberal-minded self, you should have any guilt feelings for not being able to grapple with the idea of having non-human sex. I think it's okay that you feel that way because I'm sure that it's partly biological that you do. But I think it'll be interesting to see that. I mean, I think also that's a problem with why a lot of people on Earth maybe have a problem with homosexuality. Is it because it's an evolutionary dead end, you know, until science can perhaps make it not. And I think maybe a lot of people, you know, a prejudice against that, it becomes that it's not part of their own worldview. When I would then I would posit to those people, yeah, but you know what? I think it's actually a naturally occurring thing. You know, I think I've always thought that because I grew up I had friends that were gay always growing up. Well, since I was about 13, and it was always apparent to me that was just naturally how they were. You know, it's not like you can't tell somebody not to make that choice. You know, for whatever reason, why are we attracted to the kind of people that we're attracted to? We don't really know. Like how is that instilled in you? I don't know. I don't know. So I've often thought that. I think that, you know, it would be a process, an evolutionary process. But I think human sexuality, once you start doing things that aren't involving procreation, that human sexuality is an endlessly fascinating behavioral subject. And as long as you have two consenting sentient beings who are happy, or multiple, more than two, maybe, you know, you've like, the cogenitor in the episode Enterprise, they needed 3 people to procreate. So I don't even want to limit myself there. What if you found a species of humanoid that needed 8 people to procreate? I'd say, I'd like to live on that planet for a while. You know what I'm saying? Right on. But it just depends. You know, I think sexuality goes beyond procreation. And I think, you know, what's going to happen if we do meet sentient humanoid species, we're going to have the same problem. We'll all be liberal-minded in hundreds of years on this planet. No one will be prejudicial against whether any LGBTQ. Everyone will have accepted all that. That'll all be fine. And then And then the first time somebody falls in love with, it was like an Alienation on the TV series. I forget the actress, but I thought that chick was hot with her alien. I'm like, I would be interested. I would date her. Why not? I mean, maybe I'd have to have her brush her teeth after she drank sour milk or something, but I would date that character. I found her to be highly attractive. I had no revulsion towards her at all. But I think it's a good question, and I love the fact, this is why I love Imagination Connoisseurs, that you're contemplating these kinds of questions. That's why you come to this channel and ask these questions. Bring them on. No, I think human sexuality could only benefit from the addition of sentient humanoid beings from other planets. I'm all for that. I hope I can see that before my life is over. Because wouldn't that be fun? I mean, and who knows what they'd do to you? Well-versed in many forms of pleasuring? Oh, yeah. Now, here's a letter I really wanted to get to. King of Kings, Waspinator, our fan favorite, the Waspinator's here. I don't know if the Waspinator's actually here. Hey, Rob. I'm afraid we have something serious to talk about. It's about Dune, Rob. They've made a choice in their casting that I find extremely offensive. Speaking as a longtime fan of Frank Herbert's Dune saga, a casting choice that shatters any sense of verisimilitude that is to be had. And I'm speaking, of course, about Jason Momoa as Duncan Idaho. Good morning, my lord Rob Funworthy of Hampton Worthshire. It's your old pal King Waspinator, and I'm going to go out on a limb and assume you've read all 6 of the original Frank Herbert books I have. If so, I will likewise assume you would then know that it is, in fact, Duncan Idaho who is the primary protagonist of the entire series. It's true. And in 4 out of the 6 books, Duncan Idaho was a Mentat. That's very true. Jason Momoa, a Mentat. A human computer. Right. On one hand, sure. As a one-shot movie wherein Duncan is merely a sword master of Kenaz, casting heartthrob action star Jason Momoa makes sense. But what if these movies do manage to be a hit? And they go ahead and make Dune Messiah and Children of Dune? Is Jason Momoa going to reprise himself as his younger Goa-Hate? Does he really have the chops for that kind of role? Reprise. Does he really have the chops for that kind of role? I don't mean to insult the guy, but acting ain't as easy as some people think. Okay. For those of you who don't know Dune, and you've only seen the movie or the TV show, Paul Atreides does not wind up being a hero. No. No. His jihad, or whatever you want to call it, it doesn't end well for a lot of people. I don't want to ruin the whole Dune saga, but yes, there's a lot of time that is spanned in Frank Herbert's 6 books, and people change. And I think this is really interesting. So the character of Duncan Idaho, who obviously starts out as a meathead, interestingly enough, he's in the opening scene, the way it was written, the opening scene of the movie, where he's basically dropped behind the lines on Arrakis before the Harkonnen pullout so he can see what's up and meet people, which is pretty cool. I thought that was an interesting way to open the movie. So yes, Duncan Idaho becomes very important later on and completely changes. Does he really have the acting chops for that kind of role? I don't mean to insult the guy. Acting ain't as easy as some people think, but there's a reason why he was cast as the barbarian and not the Enoch Spymaster in Game of Thrones. Let's be real. It's a minor nitpick, sure, but we got to find something to harp over now that Picard is over. I would like to address the whole Dune is going woke narrative just to say that the overall... This is actually... this is a really important point that King Waspinator is making here. I would like to address the whole Dune is going woke narrative just to say that the overall storyline of the Dune novels in terms of world building depicts an empire that starts off as a rigid feudal patriarchy that is changed by Leto II's golden path into a decentralized society that is largely run by women. That is true, but that doesn't happen in the first book. And I think that in any discussion of Dune, most people who haven't read the books, you're suddenly dipping into 6 books instead of 1, but you're absolutely right. In God Emperor of Dune, which is the fourth Dune novel, the best of the entire series, by the by, a large feature of Leto's empire is that he had stripped the males of military duty and authority in favor of a female army that could not only subdue a population with violence, but also subdue the males with sex. Anyone who thinks Dune was ever on the side of conservative values is terribly misinformed or purposefully obtuse. I would similarly refer people to God Emperor Amaneo's dressing down of Duncan, Idaho for his old-fashioned views on sexuality, when people on the internet try to make a row out of the Baron Harkonnen's bisexuality as proof of homophobia. You know what? No, because that's... Well, hang on. I would like to correct you on something you said regarding that particular subject on whining about the movies, when you said that the Baron's taste for boys came from Lynch. Okay, it didn't come from Lynch, but I think the way it was depicted was very Lynchian. That's what I meant. That is incorrect. The Baron did indeed have a taste for young lads in the books, yes. What Lynch added was all the disease, deformities, and S&M vibe, yes. Not that it was ever spelled out directly, just inferences. He was trying to get it published in the 60s after all. Yes, that Baron Harkonnen, it was sort of implied. I didn't mean, I just meant the way it was depicted is so Lynchian. Besides casting a critical eye on history through the modern moral... Casting a critical eye on history through a modern moral lens is like looking into a funhouse mirror. You can distort it to look like anything. Until next time, stay waspinated and long live the fighters. Yes, what a great letter. Very, very good points about the Dune saga, and especially about how women are portrayed throughout the series. And it's very interesting, but yes... The patriarchy doesn't have long to live, even though it's been around for 10,000 years. But yes, that's a very big... I mean, but even the Bene Gesserit, the women in Dune are very strong, even though you're talking about Lady Jessica. She might be the concubine of the Duke, but she's a very strong character. Of course, you have to do your reading and know what is up to buy into that. So... what a great letter, King Waspinator. Thank you for writing in. Big fan of your letter. So thanks for that. Let me get back to what you guys are saying. I don't even know where I was here. Let me get back to... wow. This is way far back. You guys have been firing off. Where am I? Where am I? I believe that Alexander Wilson, that was the last one I read. About Menace to Society. Yes, I think it was the last one. Okay, Star Wars Rock sent in a tip and said, "Hi, Rob. What do you think of the Siege of Mandalore Part 1? What did you think of the opening scene? I have not watched." Is that the Siege of Mandalore? Wasn't that already in Clone Wars? I haven't watched the new Clone Wars yet. I haven't watched Season 7. But I haven't seen it, so I can't tell you. McKinley sends in a tip and says, "What are your thoughts on Deep Space Nine?" Well, my show was all about Deep Space Nine yesterday. I love Deep Space Nine. Other than the original series, it's my favorite overall Star Trek show. I think it's amazing, and we really got into it on yesterday's show. I love Deep Space Nine. Paul Gilmore says, "Not sure if you talked about this already, but what a great and beautiful finale of Devs." Yeah, you know, I really liked the finale of Devs, but as I said, I was a little disappointed. I really wanted more of an existential mind fuck at the end, but it ended in sort of a romantic fashion that was sort of nice, and I liked it. It wrapped it all up in a pretty bow, but I thought there were ramifications that they could have gotten into that would have been even more heady and interesting. But I thought the ending was too pat, but I liked it. Overall, I thought Devs was a great show. I want more like that. Jason sends in a tip and says, "I wonder how many scientists making COVID-19 testing kits in the U.S. weren't hired for their ability to make good testing kits, but were instead hired based on their sex or race. Identity politics kills." Yeah, but Jason, you're making a big leap there. I think when it comes to the medical profession, I'm sure there are kind of quotas and things like that, but you know, you need to hire the people that know what they're doing first and foremost. So I wouldn't necessarily say that you're making an assertion and then you're saying that there's a result from that assertion, and we don't know if that assertion is even correct yet. So there you go. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip and says, I was watching an NBA skills workshop with legends like Shaq and Grant Hill. Grant Hill said your boy Quinn Snyder gave him great advice early in his career. Also, Jim Zorn was the Redskins head coach, and he was so in over his head. He was just not it. Yeah, I mean, it happens. I have to say that Quinn Snyder, as I've said before, when I was growing up, Quinn Snyder, who's now the head coach of the Utah Jazz, was he was always a shining example of the best of us, if that makes any sense. Like, Quinn was always getting great grades, and he was an amazing basketball player even when we were little kids. And he also, everyone loved him, and he always had a smile on his face. I can still hear his laugh in the back of my mind. He lived in my neighborhood. I mean, he was a couple of major streets over from me, but it would take me about 3 minutes to ride my bike, less than that, from my house to his house. And his father was the assistant principal at my high school, and his younger brother was cool. I mean, I have nothing but great things to say about Quinn, and he led our senior year. The Mercer Island Islanders they won the state basketball championship under his leadership. So he was awesome. And I wouldn't imagine anything less than Quinn Snyder. I don't know much about Jim Zorn other than I watched him when I was a kid. But that's really cool that Quinn Snyder gave somebody like Grant Hill advice. I wonder what the advice was. Anonymous sends in a tip and says, never watched or read Dune, but loved Denis Villeneuve and Blade Runner 2049. How excited should I be for Dune coming? Well, if you want some really interesting, compelling science fiction that has a lot to say about our world today, I would get excited. I mean, there's all kinds of high court intrigue. I mean, you've got science fiction drama, heady sci-fi concepts, court intrigue, bad guys, good guys, hot ladies. I mean, it's great. It's great. Mark C. sends in a super chat and says, would you have liked to have seen George Lucas's Apocalypse Now, or do you think we dodged a bullet? They were talking about, for those of you who don't know, before Apocalypse Now was made, George Lucas was talking about, and they were talking about like going to Vietnam and filming Apocalypse Now like during the war. I think we might have dodged a bullet. I'm glad we got American Graffiti instead from George, because it was more in his wheelhouse. And the thing about American Graffiti is, again, it's write what you know, and it's I think it's effective as it is because he lived it. It was his life. So, and I adore Apocalypse Now. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. So for all of its flaws, I love it, love it, love it. And it's a crazy vision. So I think we probably did dodge a bullet. Twin Flicks sends in a tip and says, hi, Rob. A few shows ago, I had asked if you would take a look at our fun trip unboxing video for the Skywalker Saga box set, and we thought you'd get a kick out of it. You said send the link. Here's the link. Thanks, buddy. Okay, well, let me see if I can put that in. I'll put it into the chat. I don't know why I can't take it out of the chat right now, but I will put it into the chat. Oh, wait, here I can. Here it is. Let me get it. And I will put the link in the chat right now for all of you beautiful people. Here is the link to your unboxing video. Make sure I got it. Yep. Oh, wait, hang on. I believe that's correct. So there's the link. Check that out. Miles Ellis says, did you finish Tales from the Loop yet? We watched the finale last night, and holy cow, that was an emotional ending. Congrats to Jodie Foster. She killed it. Jodie Foster did direct the end of Tales from the Loop. I have not watched the ending yet. I've just been so slammed between doing the YouTube shows, chat answers for John, which, by the way, apparently I sent them in the wrong place, which is crazy. I've been so crazed. I'll get that up today. And finishing these special features, I just haven't been able to watch anything. Next week, Star Wars Rocks goes on and says, hi again, Rob. I want to start writing scripts for movies, but I have no idea how to even write a screenplay, as I haven't been to university. I don't have a literary agent, and I live in Gibraltar. I really don't know anyone in the industry. I also am an actor and a voice actor. As I previously mentioned, I don't know anyone in the industry. Any suggestions? Well, yeah. I mean, the first thing you have to do is start reading screenplays. And I would suggest you can get screenplays online. And the easiest way to start reading screenplays is to find screenplays of your favorite movies and read those and see how they're actually done. And then start reading. I mean, obviously, you could start with Sid Field's book like Screenplay or Blake Snyder's book Save the Cat. There are various great screenwriting books. But, writing screenplays is an art form, but it's also a format. And you need to work rightly or wrongly. You're not going to be changing the screenplay form anytime soon. And I will say that you need to work within the screenplay form. It is a very specific format, and it's very apparent to anybody who works in the industry. You can tell whether a screenplay is good or not on the first page. And so I would say anybody can start writing, and you can find an agent if you have great material. Don't worry about that. Worry about mastering the form first. And it's a form that it takes a while. So, yeah, you can find books online, and you can also find scripts online, but that's where you have to begin. Learn the format. Royce Freeman sends in a super chat and says, which do you prefer, Scorsese's Color of Money or his Cape Fear? I have to tell you, I love Color of Money. I love Color of Money more than Cape Fear. Cape Fear is great. Cape Fear is a great movie. I love the way it's made. I even love the Derek Meddings effects, the houseboat effects at the end. Even though you can kind of tell they're miniatures, I still love them. And obviously Robert De Niro is great. Juliette Lewis is great. But it's just a little too over the top for me. I much prefer the character study. I love I love Color of Money. I love Paul Newman in Color of Money. I just love it. And I like it. Look, Cape Fear for what it is, for what it's set out to do, I think does a marvelous job. But it's just, I didn't love the movie for what it was. It's not that it was well done for what it was. I just prefer the story of Color of Money. It's just more grounded, not necessarily with verisimilitude. It's just more the kind of story I enjoy. I love that kind of story. So there is that. Royce asks about, I love Last Temptation of Christ, Scorsese's Last Temptation of Christ. I really do. I love the music too. Peter Gabriel's Passion score. I love it, love it, love it. It's great stuff. DC Marvel sent in a super chat and says, hey Rob, are you excited for Black Adam? I am excited for Black Adam, and I can't wait to see The Rock in it. My only fear is, again, I hope it's not too over the top, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. I would like to see it. I want it to be cool. And I can't wait to see it. Ashley sends in a tip and says, hi, Rob. I was already excited for Dune. However, the stills released earlier this week have got me even more hyped. Alito Atreides hot toy figure would certainly be welcomed. Thank you, Rob, for all that you do. Stay safe. Yeah, I agree, Ashley, and I would love to get hot toys. I don't know. It's really going to depend how it does. I don't know if hot toys, they were going to make like Prometheus figures, and Prometheus still made like $400 and something million worldwide, but they didn't end up doing it. And when they've done movie figures like their RoboCop figure, I don't think sold as well as they would have hoped. Their RoboCop figures didn't. They do much better with Star Wars and Marvel, and their off-brand movie figures such as The Crow, that didn't sell well. I don't know if they would do Dune figures. I think I would love Logan's Run Hot Toys figures. I would love the crew of the Nostromo as Hot Toys figures. I would love Alex and his three Droogs, Pete, Georgie, and Dim as Hot Toy figures. But, we don't get them. I mean, just about, I would like Hot Toys figures of every character I've ever liked in any movie ever, pretty much. It just depends on what sells. I don't know if they'll do Dune, though, which would be a bummer, but it would be cool if they did. Nick Parrish says, what's up again, Rob? I just want to say I'm always with you in your defense for physical media. For instance, I have the Blu-ray of X-Men Apocalypse, and it has 25 minutes of good deleted scenes and special features that streaming just won't provide me. Totally agree. And it makes the movie better. And Nick Parrish also says, I also enjoy my steelbook covers that come with certain Blu-rays, and streaming goes in and out every now and then, and the streaming quality comes down. Nick, I couldn't agree more. You know what's really funny? I forgot I've been putting all the movies that we watch on Elizaviews behind me here in the Robservatory. I forgot that I had a Double Indemnity steelbook, and it's British. It's from Eureka, out of the UK, and it comes with a book. And because this is, one of the great noir films of all time, I totally forgot I had this. So I'm going to supplant the one here that I use, the old Universal one. But I'm not a steelbook fiend, but I'm not opposed to them. For whatever reason, I wanted to get the Avengers and Endgame, the Infinity War and Endgame steelbooks, which I did. So yeah. Let's see. Yeah, Twin Flicks sends in a tip and says, by the way, this is the author of the VFX Colorist Letter. How you doing? And you accidentally said our channel name wrong. It's Twin Flicks on YouTube, not Two Flicks. Laugh out loud. Oh, well, I'm sorry. I very much apologize that. Twin Flicks. We've worked in the biz for 15 years, but now we review Blu-ray discs, BDs, and talk film. Thanks, bud. Well, here, I'll put your link in the live chat. Here you go. So everybody, here it is. Let's see. Here is their page. So check them out. Go check them out. Go check out Twin Flicks. Did I say Two Flicks? I'm sorry. Royce Freeman sent us another super chat and says, I heard the Watchmen comic was based on Charlton or the Charlton characters from the old age. Can you explain? Well, yes. Yes, they were. Charlton was another comics company that was acquired by DC. Characters like Blue Beetle and Captain Atom the Question. I think the Question was Charlton character. And they were those characters. And originally, when the Watchmen was conceived, Alan Moore was going to make them about those actual characters. But then after Watchmen happened, those characters would have been useless. So instead, DC mentioned this, and Alan Moore opted to make thinly veiled versions of those characters. So, yeah, I mean, the Charlton characters, it's interesting to delve into that history of those characters, but the Charlton characters have been made mainstream DC characters, and the thinly veiled versions of them, I mean, Captain Atom was supposed to be Dr. Manhattan. So, I mean, obviously Dr. Manhattan was what Alan Moore, I think we're all the better for it that they made that change. So that is absolutely true. Maurice Kane sent in a super chat and says, thoughts on the TV adaptation of the 1632 books? I haven't seen those. What is that? Hang on. 1632 books. I don't know maybe I don't know them as the 1632 books. So I don't know. Hang on. Let's see. I don't know what that is right off the top of my head. 1632 books. I'll see. It's an alternate history series. I did not know that. The Ring of Fire books. The Ring of Fire series. Is there a TV adaptation of them that I'm unaware of? Or maybe you're asking if there could be one. Well, that not knowing what they were, they look good to me. America. Wow, this sounds good. The flagship novel kicked off a collaborative writing effort that has involved hundreds of contributors and dozens of authors. How cool is that? I'd watch that. Wow. Wow, the fictional town of Grantville, West Virginia, modeled on the real West Virginia town of Mannington, and its power plant are displaced in space-time through a side effect of a mysterious alien civilization. Wow, that sounds great. I love stories like that. Wow, a hemispherical section of land about 3 miles in radius measured from the town center is transported back in time and space from April 2000 to May of 1631 from North America to the Central Holy Roman Empire. The town is thrust into the middle of the 30 Years' War in the German province of Thuringia, near the fictional German free city of Badenburg. I'm in. Count me in. That's awesome. I hope they make that. I would watch that. Mukbang Reviews sends in a super chat. I've never attended San Diego Comic-Con, but I enjoyed the updates and releases and watching those who did go there. Comic-Con's great. I met so many people at Comic-Con that I later collaborated with. I love it. Yes, Mark C says Starfire's name is pronounced Coriander. Yes, it is. Yes, like the spice. It's not an accident that her skin is the same color as the spice. Yes, it's true. It is Coriander. I knew that, but I always say her sister's name is Commandar, so I get it. I sometimes mix it up, and it's not Commandar. in my own mind. But you are right. Coriander is, but I always say coriander. I've always said coriander. I've never said it coriander. I always said coriander. I don't know. That's just me, but it's probably wrong. But you're right. I will defer to you, sir. BL Alley sends in a tip and says, embarrassed, yes. Apoplectic, no. That being said, I ordered a new copy for you, but it's taking a while. Oh, well, until it arrives, I present you the current watercolor cover art. Ooh, I'll put this in the chat too. BL Alley is here's the new cover art of his book. He doesn't like the fact that I have this old cover and this book. He doesn't like that. I told you I can't throw a book away. So there's the cover. So I'm glad you're not apoplectic. I'm glad you're not mad. Dan V sends in a tip and says, I do agree with Jason Momoa being miscast as Duncan, which comic book girl harped on right away. He doesn't exactly have great range. Anyone complaining about Dune going woke with what was said in Vanity Fair never read the books. That's just clear to me. You're absolutely, yes. Well, I mean, Dune is so much, everybody that thinks Paul Atreides is the hero of the story. It's like, nope. Nope. Yeah. It's so, yeah. But, you can't expect that. I think one of the great things about the Dune movie is that people are going to read those books, which is great. But I don't necessarily think Duncan Momoa is miscast. Duncan Momoa. Did I just say Duncan Momoa? I did, didn't I? Jason Momoa is necessarily miscast. Oh, Twin Flicks put the wrong link in. Uh-oh. Oh, no. Well, here's the right link. I think it doesn't have a .com on it, so what can I say? Let's see. Anyway, yes, but you're right. Dan V says, I would also recommend Comic Girl 19's Dune Club with going over the first book. I do wish it was a TV show on HBO since it had a better shot of lasting compared to hoping it does well at the box office with a big budget. I sadly expect a one and done. I hope not. They're expecting big things from it. With that cast, maybe people will go. Anthony Gonzalez, I hope springs eternal, Dan. I want this movie to do well. I want them to do more with it. I would love to see Dune do more. I hope it's not one and done. Unfortunately, the movie doesn't exactly end on a note where you think to yourself, oh my God, Darth Vader's Luke Skywalker's father. I hope not. Anthony Gonzalez says, 2 questions. Did you get the die-cast Eagle Moss Breen ship? I did not. And would you want a sequel to District 9? I don't know. I like District 9 kind of I like the world's certainly interesting, but I wasn't clamoring for a sequel right away. Throg has mad skills, sends in a tip and says, Shaq and the NBA Skills Workshop, that is oxymoronic. If ever there was a lazy player in any sport regarding skills, it has to be Shaq. All he had was his size. I wouldn't even put him in Kobe within the top 10. Kobe wasn't Jordan. Shaq wasn't Bill Russell. Oh, man, you know what? Come on, man. While I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you're wrong because I think there's truth in what you speak, Throg. Shaq is still Shaq, But yeah. Stubble McShave says, is there any chance they don't do a Dune Part 2? Yeah, if it doesn't make any money. Dan V says, I don't think you mentioned it before, but have you read Starman by James Robinson? I have, and I've got the books right over there, the hardcovers. Jack Knight is the most down-to-earth superhero, and it really was a great run. Starman 11 is an all-time great issue, and I'm rereading it. It is. Look, Starman is great. It is fantastic. Listen, everybody, I've got to get back to work. I am so behind today. I've achieved, in the last 24 hours, I've just fallen behind. So I'm going to end this. I've got many more letters to read. I will, of course, be back tomorrow. Hopefully I'm done with all this, but yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being here for Robservations episode number 394. We're coming up on the 400th episode. It's going to be great. So, yeah. And I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to thank the generous support of the channel. I want to thank everybody who writes great letters. I want to thank my moderating staff, of course. We've got Mike Bodden, who hasn't been around here, but he still sends me all the letters. I want to thank the great detective Jim Boyers. I want to thank Greg Smith. I want to thank Louis Yu and Jordy Lyons for being great men and great people. And Jordy has a letter I'm going to read tomorrow that's pretty funny. So, Jordy, I haven't forgotten about you. And I I gotta get off. I got work to do. And I will say, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear, and all you have to do is listen. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I say, if you like these chats, hit like. Please put comments, all those things. Smash like now, as Davey504 says. Or slap like. He says slap like now. I want to thank you for everything. And I would be back tomorrow, and we have another episode of Elizaviews whining about the movies tomorrow night at 6. So, as always, I say to you, have a better day. Sorry for the abrupt ending. I just realized, I'm like, it's 3:35. I've been going for 2.5 hours. I'm like, oh my God, this is not the day that I should go over. But I was having fun with everybody. So there you go. And I hope everybody does have a better day.